Okay, just wanted to talk through the creation of this photo in Photoshop from the starting point through to the end result. So first of all, I'll show you the image that is captured from the camera and brought into Photoshop, and then you'll notice that I have a number of edits that we do to that in these layers here that show a screen retouching. I've actually then masked out the image so you can see the mask out there. There's some dodge and burn, but very, very minor bits and pieces just on the upper torso, just to give some definition there, as you can see from that shot there. So that's pretty much it for the original character. You'll notice that then I've created a duplicate of that layer, which is this one here, which is just showing the mask, and there it is again, the mask there, which I'm using to then create copies of that mask for when I bring in background layers. We've got a number of other elements in this. First of all, there's some background colours, which is actually various sunset photos. There's a set of buildings, and then there are some waves and splashes, and finally there are some effects for the fireflies that are being sent with the sending. So first of all, the splash, you can see there is actually just two copies of the same image that are just masked out slightly more. They're actually a photo taken from the same day. You'll see a shot here in my photos somewhere of this particular photo here, where she was doing a splash with her hands, and I've used that photo in here. You can see part of that's been masked just to create the splash that's showing up in here. So if I just go back to that, that's that bit on the side. Then you'll notice on the right hand side of the layers there, I have a number of layers that are actually not turned on. And how I tend to do that is I actually will create something and then maybe fiddle around with it, and then either duplicate the result and use that so that the original is not touched, non-destructive in other words, or sometimes I might just not be happy with it and do it again. So I'm not quite sure why that particular group's turned off, I can't remember. However, the next group you'll be able to see is this one here, and if I go into the actual image and change the opacity to 100%, there's not a whole lot there you can see, but essentially that's just a sunset photo, as you can see from the small thumbnail, that I've then applied some gradients to. So gradients in this case applied just to that layer. Oh, that's why I created that, sorry, I lied. So I've created an image with gradients on it, and then I've created a duplicate of that with the mask, and then I've applied these new gradients to that one. So I've essentially just applied some gradients, which you'll be able to see the properties of here. No, I choose the properties tag. It's presumably that gold gradient there, and this one is possibly the same. Same gradient, and one of them is done as an overlay at 65%, and the other one's done as a linear dodge at 53%. So that's essentially just really dropping out that background to be just a faint bit of clouds in the background. The next group up then is another copy of the same thing again, where I've actually just masked out some of the top of it and applied more gradients, basically the same as another copy, and that's just essentially creating duplicates of the same thing, so just makes it a bit deeper in terms of its overall impact on the image. Sometimes I might do that 2 or 3 times, then merge them together, depending on how I feel the background's looking. Okay, so the background itself then has several components. There's that one, which is that really sort of faint, sort of shadowy stuff in the background. We have another set called sunset colors here, which is same again, just very, very light sunset, just giving us that gold sort of orangey colour coming through here. There is another colour gradient, which I'll show you, which is actually creating the overall effect, but the other ones are just providing that background sort of cloudy sort of look. So then we have the buildings. So essentially we have 3 buildings which have been dropped in at quite low opacity from the original photo, as you can see there. So I've cut them out of an original picture, put them into here, and then presumably masked them to some extent. Yeah, I've stuffed that up. Let's just fix that. We'll just do that by going back to here. There we go. So there's your buildings. Essentially then what I've done with that is created a copy of the buildings which is merged together, and that just gives you that nice shadowy effect of those buildings in the background. All the images in this have been shot by me. Those buildings were shot in Brisbane ones, and then they've been tilted on the side, and I've done some distortion with perspective transforming to actually get them to look like that. From memory, one of those buildings was actually a house on the river, Brisbane River. Another is, I'm not sure where they are, to be honest. Just buildings that had sort of Gothic looking. Oh, that's right, yes, the one on the right hand side is actually an old church in Tasmania, and the other one was a building in Brisbane. And I've just sort of blended those together. We were talking about sunset colours. Next we have the water splashes. So essentially the water splashes a bit tricky. How am I going to show you that? Turn that on. Actually, what I'm looking at is seeing that that's not actually even turned on in here, so let's not worry about the water splashes. The fireflies. Okay, so we had 2 sets of fireflies, and I turned one set off. So that was the original set, and I turned them off because we didn't want to have them going vertically. I wanted to get them horizontally. So turn those water splashes. Oh, that's why that's turned off. Okay. So if we go back to here, we turn all those off together. That's why that was turned off. So we have the second copy of the fireflies, which is here. So essentially we had all the fireflies, which are individual layers. If I just find one of them, I don't know if I can't even see that. Essentially they're tiny little images that look like this, and they're just duplicated a whole bunch of times, and you can maybe see the outline of those in the purple and orange. So essentially they're there a whole lot of times. I've then dragged a whole bunch of paint through them and blown them up a little bit and duplicated it numerous times to end up where I'll get this look like that there. There's then a gradient put across that, which is actually just a rainbow gradient, which is an overlay. So I've added it all together into one image, or to one item, one layer, and then I've put a gradient on that by blending options. You can see that there. And the gradient overlay is just a rainbow gradient in a linear format, just to make that sort of colour sort of show up this yellow down the bottom, blue, and sort of purpley bits and whatnot. So essentially that's then just looking like that, and that's just laid across the image, and I've masked it out where I had bits, so it's gone behind, so it looks like it's going behind her as well. Finally, then we have the mist. So the mist is just bits of mist down the bottom right hand side there, which overlaying the photos, bits of clouds from other pictures. and have some breaking waves, which is, you can see there, another shot from the same shoot. Once again, took the photo, masked out some of the images, some of the person behind it, and you can see some very faint image of the actual water behind, and then the breaking waves at the front. That would have been one of these photos here. Can't really see it. Would have been one of these pictures here, like that one there, maybe. Which you can't see in there. Finally, okay, so that's the splash. Duplicated again down the side there to get more splash happening in the centre, so the same splash is on the left-hand side. Finally, this layer here is where I've actually just done a gradient fill of orange and gold, and then just masked the crap out of it to get the sort of overlay. It's then put in as a soft light at 100%, so it really creates quite a dramatic addition to the background. You can see that there, off and on again. And that's that final colour. Last little bit left, last but not least, I should say, we have our logo and the Final Fantasy logo, which is just added in there. And that's it, guys. That's how we put that image together. Hope you enjoyed that.